Washington put on the pads for the first time and had a special guest on Saturday.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He writes for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. I'm the site editor over with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. These days, every new potential hire could feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Now, Lars, it has been a huge Saturday. We're recording this a little bit early. We're recording our reactions after practice on Saturday, and it was a really big day. Bill Belichick was in attendance. The first day of pads, and I feel like the only way to start, and by the way, side note, shout out to our good buddy, Alex Katzen, who covers the Huskies with me over at Huskies Wire. We were having lunch on Saturday, and somebody comes up to us and just goes, "Hey, you're Roman. Love Locked On Huskies." So shout out to that guy. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the love that, we've seen over the first couple of days of spring practice. Really does mean a lot to us. And with that being said, Lars, all the love on Saturday did seem to be around Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of appropriate. So it was kind of funny because initially when I got to practice, I ended up seeing Danny Shelton and LeVon Coleman and somebody Danny Shelton was walking in with, who I'll get to later. Because that should just be a total separate thing in itself. But
yeah,
but I didn't necessarily even think about Bill Belichick. Like, again, obviously when we walked into practice, we could see hundreds and hundreds of high school coaches from around the Seattle area and probably the state of Washington. Actually, some that even came up from out of state.
All up and down, yeah. Up and down the West Coast.
A couple that came from out of state for sure. That I didn't really think about Bill Belichick, right? Because again, we're here to watch practice. Again, obviously, but then once we went over to the Dempsey, and it's like, oh wait, and ironically on our way over to the Dempsey was who I realized the other person was that Danny Shelton walked in with. Again, tease for later. But once you see, once you pointed out Bill Belichick to me, I was like, that is crazy. Wearing the patented gray, but
it wasn't a cutoff hoodie. It was just a long sleeve gray hoodie. Had the trucker cap on too. So one thing that I want to make sure that we get in there. It's something I wrote about a little bit over on Huskies Wire just in my post practice review, was the sound of when Bill Belichick walked in. Because you, me, and Alex were standing there with one of our other buddies, one of the high school coaches. Shout out Coach V. We're all standing together. We're all having a conversation, and then everything just fell silent. And it felt like even like practice is still going on in the background, but it felt like it wasn't for a second. Like all the attention, all the eyes in the area. There were maybe 50, 60 people that were all standing around us. All the eyes just turned as Bill Belichick walked into the room. And we're standing in Dempsey, and it's just, wait, hold on. There he is right there. We all knew this was coming. Like none of this was a surprise. And it was still, whoa, that is actually Bill Belichick wearing a UW hoodie. And even if you said this to us 6 months ago, like we would have just said, no, you're a liar. This is never something we're going to see. And me personally, I have a lot of feelings that it's just an insane, just an insane situation. But that was just the biggest thing for me, where we'll get to everything else, but just that silence, that moment of, whoa, he's actually here, was still unbelievable.
Right, and I think it's almost kind of cool to where it did seem like a quote unquote surprise, because like, oh wow, right, Bill Belichick's here, but we all knew this was coming, right? I mean, Jedd Fisch even said he's going to spend 5 days with the program, and and that's one thing I noted after practice as well. It's like this isn't just Bill Belichick coming in and cash a check. He's staying around the team, and I think probably next, I believe Thursday, because again Tuesday would be probably the last days with the team. So by Thursday, we can ask some of the other players, like, hey, what was it like just having Bill Belichick around the field? Because again, we didn't really get to ask Carson Ritter and Canfin Victor too much about that after Saturday's practice, because those are the players made available. But again, we did get to talk to his son, which was still just an absolute trip. I mean, again, the man truly could not be more Belichick than his father. I mean, it's like gives the same kind of answers. It's very much is what it is.
He's a lot funnier than his dad, though, and all due respect, but he is a lot funnier than his dad.
And you know what's funny? Recruits have noticed that. You mentioned that with some recruits. It's a number. So it's not like he just is this checked out like, hey, I'm a college DC for 1 year just because I couldn't find a job in the NFL. It's like, no, he's doing what he can and also still being himself. He's not going to go out of his way like, hey, kids, yeah, let's do this. And that's like, if I ever saw Belichick doing that, I'd have concerns, right? It's like, if I'm seeing him getting pumped up at practice one day, I was like, I don't know about that. Now, he might like be the kind of funny coach, right? Where he trips a couple of guys and messes around with some guys, you know, the Jamarcus Shepard, if you will, right? A quieter version, right? Just but that side of Shepard, right? Where Shepard would have fun with Rowe, would have fun with Jalen, would be able to do that. Where Belichick won't do that. He could do that in his own way, but I think he's just being himself, and it's kind of cool to see him and his dad. It was cool to see him and his dad stand in the end zone of the Dempsey and just watch the defense. And the cool thing for me was, there's again, like I said, he didn't come here to just cast a check. His eyes were glued on this. He was watching punts. He's watching Jeremiah Hunter and Daniel Agata. Like you could see Bill. He's like, he's actually right because all the people. Bill Belichick could just be the one. Hey, I'm going to walk around practice. I'll shake hands. I'll make it look like it, but I don't really care. I'm just here to say hi to my son because it's cool and I'm doing a solid for Jedd and I'm getting out. It's like, no, he's actually staying in, which I think speaks to Jedd Fisch's sincerity with the topic of the NFL.
Absolutely. And just on top of that, like we definitely need to like actually talk about practice, but this is just such a big portion of it that we can't not hit on it. And one of the biggest things surrounding that, one of the biggest things about it was just kind of the way that, as you said, when he was sitting back there watching practice, we saw him during 7-on-7s. We saw him during the full team period where he's just like standing back there. He had his own call sheet. Like he's standing back there just watching plays like he would when he was in New England. Just taking it all in, standing next to Jedd, standing next to Steve, and just watching everything unfold, which was really, really cool. And there was a lot that unfolded. Like he picked a really good day on the first day of pads. And Lars, I think the person that we need to start with, you know, as much as we love Denzel Boston, I think Rasheed Williams might have had a better day. And Rasheed Williams had some fantastic grabs. I'll let you get into your agenda in 1 second. He had some fantastic catches. The best one being during the final team period from Will Rogers, just pulled in a nice sideline ball, made a really strong grab in front of Elijah Jackson, got up, spun the ball right in his face. Oh, it was fantastic. It was, and it's just really nice to see him coming along because we're expecting guys to be, the only term really is to just say be forced to take a leap. And it seems like he's going to be one of the first people to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you look at that room, right, where you got Giles Jackson, Jeremiah Hunter, and two veterans, and then everybody behind them, you're fighting for spots. So you really got at least 2 or 3 starting jobs to work with, depending on how many receivers you want to say they start. So if you say 3, is it Denzel and Rasheed competing for that? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if those 2 are starting, and you're figuring out Giles and Jeremiah, right? Because those 2 guys,
I disagree.
Well,
please finish your point.
The reason why I say it is because those guys can do different things to where you have to find a way, because Denzel and Rasheed Williams are going to find a way to get consistent targets. You're going to have to find a way to get Jeremiah Hunter and Giles Jackson also involved in this offense. So I don't think that's going to be a problem, right? Because of the offense that Jedd Fisch runs. But I think that those guys are going to come along a lot quicker than people think.
So I have a lot of thoughts because I disagree with that point in terms of it'll be Rasheed versus Denzel. But let's take a quick break real fast. And let's send a message to our good friends over at LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And just like it looks like more and more every day that Jedd Fisch was a fantastic hire for this Husky program, just with all the things he's been able to do so far, that seems like just a fantastic hire all around. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, it might not have the time or resources to hire. And that's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the hiring process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Lars, I've got a bit of a hot take, and this is why I said that I have to disagree with you. because we haven't seen Jeremiah Hunter run with the first team a lot recently. And that's because he was a late enrollee, so he probably wasn't involved in some of the PRPs and some of the other things over the course of the offseason, so he's probably just getting up to speed with install and things like that. I think Jeremiah Hunter is just going to be a dude for this offense. I think he's going to be fantastic. I've got really high expectations for him. Here's my take. I think it's going to be Rasheed Williams versus Giles Jackson for that third starting spot. And I say that because we saw Rasheed play in the slot a little bit last year in Ryan Grubb's offense when he did get on the field, which was not often. But we saw him get on the field a little bit in that slot role. And I like his size. I like his versatility. I like seeing him just kind of in that spot. And then Denzel Boston is too talented to keep off the field. Jeremiah Hunter is too talented to keep off the field. I think both Giles and Rasheed are equally talented. I think they're both fantastic receivers, but I just think with the skill sets of the other two guys and just how big of a mismatch they can be, you can't not start them, especially when you look at Jeremiah Hunter's body of work and you look at what Denzel Boston's ceiling is, as we were talking about just on the sidelines, all practice really, because we've just been enamored with everything he's been doing. You can't keep those guys off the field. And I'm not saying this in terms of, hey, you can keep Giles off the field. That's absolutely not the point of this. But I just think that with what he can do and what Rasheed can do, I think that they can just provide similar value to the offense while having a somewhat different skill set. And I think that if there's going to be a battle somewhere, it's going to be there.
See, that's an interesting point. I mean, and it's a point well taken, but I think the solution to this, we're kind of almost talking about it itself without even saying it. Jeremiah Hunter is your starting X, right? The big, tall, whatever.
Yeah.
The Y is Denzel Boston. Giles Jackson's in the slot. You have Denzel and Rasheed basically just going back and forth. You're trading both of them. It's like, I think both of them will be able, because again, and then if Jeremiah Hunter's having it off, then he subs out and one of those two goes over. So I think either way, you're going to have them on the field. So I don't think it's a matter of one beating each other. I think they're both going to end up getting equal number of snaps. I can see Rasheed in the slot, but I think they might have Giles' experience. And again, we've seen him go over the middle. Again, he is Rod Tidwell.
Right.
Like, he goes over the middle. Like he's one of the more reliable pass catchers in college football just over the last 2 years. If you go look at his stats on PFF.
No, I agree. But that's why I'm saying, where do I think that happens? Not necessarily. But I just think in terms of which spot might be the most up for grabs, I think it's that one. And it's nothing against Giles. You're right. He's very consistent, very reliable. He's done a fantastic job during his time here. I just think that it's something that's easy enough where with Rasheed on the field, that creates a different sort of mismatch in the slot. And you can do a lot of different things with him where you can stack him and use him in different ways and just run a lot of different release concepts off the line of scrimmage with just say, Rasheed lined up with Jeremiah Hunter. You can do that with Giles Jackson as well. I just think it provides a different element to the offense is more my point.
No, and I think the overarching point is that it's a good problem to have, right? Because again, all these absolutely. Guys they're going to find a way. Jimmy Doherty and Jedd Fisch are going to find a way and Kevin Cummings, obviously, we're going to find a way to get these guys all on the field because they all each do something different. I mean, certainly Giles does something different than Denzel, and vice versa, right? So, and Jeremiah Hunter certainly, right? So all these guys, they kind of have their. I mean, we've even seen it already with Jeremiah Hunter, where he had Elijah Jackson on Thursday's practice at the end of Thursday's practice, where they had the one-on-one fade ball.
Yeah,
EP was able to lock it down, and so you can see Jeremiah Hunter's working there, right? And he's going into Elijah Jackson, who was a starter last season. So clearly, just because he's with the twos or running with Demond Williams, first of all, we have to look at it from that other side where he's helping out Demond Williams, like he's helping out Demarcus Davis, right? Some of these older guys they kind of need them on that second, third team just to work with the freshmen because hey, we don't really have a lot of bodies here. We don't have Rome, Jalen, and Jalen to show up again. Like they can be a visitor at practice, but they're not going to suit up again. So it's kind of balancing both in terms of let's see who builds chemistry with who can be the long-term answer with who, and somewhere at the end of 15 practices they'll have a better idea of who works well. But either way, you're going to have a plethora of targets for whoever ends up being the starter, more likely Will Rogers. But whoever ends up being the starter, they're going to have a number of weapons. And that's a good problem to have.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So with that being said, we should talk about one of those weapons. That's Denzel Boston. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it because we've done that so much throughout the course of just this past week already. And in the first team period, We saw him just take a screen pass from Will Rogers and take it 50 yards to the house. And, you know, there are some plays where guys pull up. They're just like not finishing through first day of pads. They're trying to keep things safe, just easing into it. That's okay. That is what it is. No, that wasn't this play where he just beat everybody. He outran everybody and just took it to the house. And it was so impressive. And it was just such a nice way to just showcase his whole skill set, where we know he can go up and win jump balls. We know he can do so many just things down the field, but it's nice just seeing them get the ball in his hands and him make a play himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. I mentioned this to you at practice as well as Coach Reed. Like he was criminally under recruited. Like that is just it. I mean, and again, obviously, is Emerald Ridge, you know, a powerhouse in the West Coast? By all means, no. But that's no slight to Emerald Ridge. But it's like there's been plenty of talented players that have come out, you know, of the state that are under recruited or underrated. You're right, 3 stars, whatever you want to call it. Drew Sample was a 3-star, enjoying a nice Super Bowl winning career in the NFL. So again, you don't have to be that highly rated to still have plenty of schools look after you. And yet, Denzel really, it just seemed like, I mean, Demarcus Shepard was like, yeah, I didn't really know much about him. And then, holy cow, you watch this guy. It's like, how does he not have like 20 plus offers? How is he not, you know, this 4-star sort of player? Because again, was his tape there fully? No, but you could see again all that projectability, his size, his frame. It's like there's no reason why, and it's a great personality, right? A great kid. So he's a student of the game. Absolutely. He's going to learn and work on his craft. You don't have to worry about him not putting in the work. So we've seen that. We saw that last year, right? Where he knew going in, like, yeah, this probably would be my year in any other year, but I got to wait. And you know what? It's cool because next year is going to be my year. And I'll be able to say, yeah, all those things that I did last year in practice, you guys are now seeing, you know, on Saturdays. And I think, again, it's not a hot take. I know Softy kind of said, well, that's a lukewarm take. Okay. The point is Denzel Boston is coming in with how many touchdowns and how many, you know, yards and receptions. Again, some, right, but not as many as Rome and Jalen and Jalen did when they were coming into 22. So those guys at least had a pretty decent running start in 21. Denzel didn't even get that. So, you know, to say, again, the safe bet, as you mentioned, is Jeremiah Hunter, right? Dallas Jackson might be the X factor in that, but I mean Denzel is right there, and again, Kevin Cummings. If you can't have Demarcus Shepard, you gotta get Kevin Cummings. And man, it really is. There is no drop off. I think in that there again, probably
there's a slight drop off, but it's not.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like there's nowhere near what the thought was going to be after. Oh no, Demarcus isn't coming back. That's why you want to work to keep him. It's like okay, well. Sure. The grass is sometimes greener on the other side. Not always. More often than not, it's not. But this is that example of good grass coming back.
I agree with you there. And spent a lot of time on wide receivers. So I feel like one other person that we need to mention is quarterback Demarcus Davis. We're both freshmen, had a really good day. Demond Williams was really impressive, did a lot of really nice things with his legs. And I think he had the overall better day, Demond did. But Demarcus had the big play of the day, where during one of the later scrimmage portions, he just took off and just really showed off his own wheels and just said, yeah, I know everybody's talking about Demond's legs. And Demond made some really nice plays with his as well. But he took off and scored a 40-yard rushing touchdown where he just did a really good job just tucking, running, identifying, seeing that the play wasn't there. And that's why we're so high on both of these guys, where we know they both have a full skill set. And just moving forward, it seems like no matter which person ends up winning the job, that the quarterback's room going forward is going to be in a really good spot.
Exactly. I think that's why you kind of make sure you have the overarching veteran, Will Rogers, to kind of make sure, hey, you have a safety blanket, right? This isn't just hey, we got 2 freshmen, one of them is going to figure it out. And I think that's a smart plan by Jedd Fisch and Jimmy Dore to say, hey, look, we like both quarterbacks. They both do some different things, as we both discussed on multiple shows. But I like Demarcus today kind of showing that, where it's like, hey, I could do this too. And then again, literally on the next drive, it almost seemed, I don't know if it was scripted, but certainly you could kind of see Demond, his pocket awareness, go out to the right on that, I think, probably 5-10 yarder that he gained. But I will say, this is a random thought as you were talking about Demarcus' run. And it's Demarcus for those wondering. Marsh, that's why you say Demarcus. Demarcus. There you go. Just connecting the dots for people wondering. So, with that being said, slim, younger Vince Young. He had that natural stride as a runner where it did not. I say that to say because he's young. Vince Young was taller, right? Demarcus is 6'4", 6'5". I think Vince Young was in that similar. Because again, Demond is. That's why you say Kyler Murray, right? Because again, shorter. Sure. Again, some might say Bryce Young. So again, in that you got to go to the mold of the quarterback. I'm not saying by any means Demarcus Davis is Vince Young. I'm not saying that. But when he was running, he was casually just gliding. And again, it's in practice. You're not going to go far. But to know he has that potential to have those strides, it's almost like, hey, yeah, you can work with something here. He doesn't just have that slight pocket. No, he's got the ability to move if he needs it.
So, Lars, you hinted at it. We definitely need to talk about it because there was an official visitor on campus this weekend. So we'll get there right after a quick break. Lars, Philip Bleedy, the defensive tackle from Indiana, who I know you've spoken to. He was on campus this weekend. You saw him talking a little bit with Danny Shelton, and he's got some other big-time visits coming up. And this is somebody where, and shout out to Steve Belichick, where, he was asked questions like they weren't really about Bleedy, but just about what he thought he might need in the transfer portal. And he gave a fantastic answer of, well, I was looking for good players, which I love personally. I respect his Belichickian answer, but yeah, no, Philip Bleedy I think he'd be a really good fit in this defense.
Well, see, and that's kind of what so there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because I remember Jedd Fisch talking after, the first practice when he's like, look, yeah, we need some big, tough guys. I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
You know who else is from New Jersey? Philip Bleedy. He's from Trenton, New Jersey. So, and again, went all the way to New Mexico. I documented this, right? Went to high school in New Mexico, Texas Tech, and then Indiana. Now he's looking for a year to get developed, is what he told me. So, yeah. Who better? And this is going to be full circle about practice. When I had my conversation with him, I believe about a week and a half ago now, the story is up on athlon.com. I believe it will be up soon. But he said he wants to get developed, and he's looking for the developmental piece. And he's like, who better than an NFL coach? Who better than an NFL scheme who knows that NFL teams are going to want to see that I can play in their system? That's exactly what I'm looking for. And he's like, hey, he's a funny guy. He's a chill guy. He seems like he'd be a great guy to develop me. But I have a great relationship with that whole staff because, again, he almost visited Arizona last time, had a great relationship with a number of coaches on that staff. It brings it full circle. When he's walking around at practice, also, I got to admit, for the folks listening and watching, hands up if you saw my tweet about Richard Newton being in practice. Roman can attest to this. I swear, if you look in the face, again, I probably should have taken a closer look, a second look. Not the worst thing in the world. But they look kind of similar in the face and similar hairstyles. But, of course, Philip Bleedy is much bigger than Richard Newton, and that's not a shot at Richard Newton. But he walked around, and when they were inside the Dempsey, he was standing next to Bill Belichick. I think you couldn't have picked a better weekend to have him as the first visit on campus, have the weekend when Bill Belichick's around the team and seeing all this coaching, seeing this development, and seeing how you can – that's the other thing he mentioned to me is resources. What other resources do you have at Washington? Some pretty good ones. Yeah, that's
a decent one right there. So I'm glad you mentioned that because he would just be such a great fit in the middle of this defense. But I feel like we need to just kind of shift the conversation a little bit to talk about some of the players on this defense that have been wreaking havoc. And the main one is Zack Durfee, where we've talked about it a couple of times. He looks like a man on a mission throughout the course of fall camp so far, where, yeah, he's facing some redshirt freshmen. He's facing some true freshmen at tackle, but he's not just winning by just, his athleticism. He's not winning by blowing by people. He's got a very clear pass rush plan. He's utilizing a lot of different moves and has just been really, really good. And he's somebody who's really stood out to me through these first couple of days of camp because he just looks like he's not going to be stopped. And it's going to be very exciting to watch where, there were some takes that you and I, when we were discussing them before last season, where it's, oh man, if like the more Durfee we see, like it looks like he's going to be a real big game record this in 2023. And he was going to be an important part of everything that happened last season. Obviously it didn't, we don't need to go into that, but it feels like he's back with a vengeance for this season.
The NCAA made Zack Derpy walk so Zack Derpy could just rip a hole through everybody this season. Like it's almost in a way, it's like you just pissed off one of the nicest, meanest kids you could possibly. Again, I say nicest, meanest because again, off the field when he walks away with 3 times, and
it's that flip. It's flipping that switch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we see it on the field where it's like, oh man, when he straps that helmet on, you get a different kid than the kid that's smiling on camera after the fact. And that's exactly what you want, right? Because I saw him go against Elijah Jaquette. I go see him against Jerez Party. I will say, shout out to Elijah Jaquette. He does need a little bit of flowers because he did stop Zack Durfee once. I believe it was on a run, but either way, call it what you will. But with that being said, man, like Zack Derpy is just he's going to play so pissed off this season for not being able to play last season unjustly that it's like, okay, cool. You took 1 year away from me. Now I'm going to get 2 years of work in 1 year. That's a benefit for Washington and this coaching staff. Should have happened last season. But I think it's probably kind of a good thing because if you looked at last season, you did have ZTF, you did have Braylon Trice. I know.
But you could have used one more.
Right. Well, unfortunately, if you came on late at the end. But I think this year when you're looking at their line, who are we pointing at? Zach. So that's kind of where I'm. Yeah, go ahead.
So, this is kind of what I was thinking for the last couple minutes of the show. Just giving flowers to a couple of guys who stood out through the first week. Where it's something when I write my post practice report over on Huskies Wire, something I really like to do in my little note section down at the bottom is just give flowers to people that I think earned it. And I've got a few where I'm going to start with the edge rushers because of what you just said. Certainly they're going to be looking for guys. Saw Lance Holtzclaw with the first team today. Really like seeing that. I love Lance. I've got a great relationship with Lance. And he's just taken so many strides over his 2 years on campus in terms of developing his body, in terms of getting faster, getting stronger. And he was already a pretty fast kid to begin with, where he's done so much in terms of making sure that he's physically ready to play. I think that he's going to take a big step forward this year. And I think having Maurice Himes, who I think is going to step into more of a role as like a big edge setter, I think that's going to be really interesting to see, and it'll free up a lot for Lance to just kind of go as a pass rusher, along with the two Arizona transfers in Isaiah Ward and Russell Davis. I think that's going to end up being a really, really solid group. We can throw Voy in there, where I think he might move back to the interior for a little bit more this season, just with so many of those guys on the edge. But the interior, my biggest winner of the day personally was Jayvon Parker, where there were so many where we were watching the run fits, the run scheme drills that they were doing. And there were points where Jayvon just looked like the most dominant player that was out there. And I was just so impressed, which is his first step. He's improved on his quickness. He just, as he continues to refine everything about himself. And I'm really excited to get to watch more of Armon Parker as well. But Jayvon might have honestly been my biggest winner of the day, because just the more I watch him, the more I see him improve. And it's at a position where two things. One, Washington is desperately in need of somebody else to be a productive body in that spot. And two, a good player at that position, not good, but just a really good to great player. Somebody who can truly wreck the game from that spot can wreck an entire offensive line, because you can create so much havoc. And I'm not saying that's the kind of player that Jayvon's going to be, but I'm just saying if he can just turn into somebody who, along with Sebastian Valdez, along with his brother, along with somebody else, can just draw a double team on every single play and force, whether it be Sebastian Valdez, whether it be Zach Durfee, whether it be Lance Holtzclaw, Russell Davis, Isaiah Ward, all these guys that I just mentioned, here's where it comes full circle. If he can be that guy that's drawing those double teams, then I think this pass rush could be one of the better ones in the Big Ten, personally.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think when you said one other player, let's bring this thing full circle, Philip Bleedy. Imagine putting your two starting tackles are Philip Bleedy, Jayvon Parker. Armon Parker is probably second. Sebastian Valdez is your second. And then, I mean, the point is, you only have 1 year with Philip Bleedy, right? So there's other guys that can come back, and Armon can certainly be a key guy next year. But again, when you're talking about stacking talent, right? It's one thing we talk about all the time. In order to make a actual, 9-10 win season run, especially in the Big Ten, you need guys like that can eat. Not just a Jayvon Parker. You need 2 or 3, right? I mean, go look at Ohio State. Do they just take a couple and call it good? No, you need to load up. And so I think that's why Washington, and that's why I'm saying that's why Washington going after Philip Bleedy and getting him for his first official is so important. Because if you could add a body like that, then Voy becomes expandable to where he can go inside, outside. He can be your special, you can, and that's no slight to Voy, right? But the more you can do with these guys, I mean, for God's sake, we won't tip it away too much, but Isaiah Ward has multiple positions on this defense. I'll just leave it at that. But you know what I'm talking about. I'll keep it kosher for Jedd Fisch. But with that being said, seeing all these coaches use these guys in different ways, that's why they're bringing in a Bleedy. Why they're bringing in some of these other guys. Because, again, you could roll with the roster they got, but if you're talking about being one of the 33rd NFL teams, you need to go get NFL guys who still happen to be in college develop them so they can say, hey, I got developed into a first rounder at Washington. I was good, but Washington and Steve Belichick made me a first rounder next to Jayvon Parker, who'll probably be a first or second rounder when he decides to go. So,
no, I totally get your point, because it comes back to two words that I know I've harped on a lot over the course of recruiting here, and it's stacking talent. That's what it's all about. Just continuing to stack talent. And with that being said, Lars, before we get out of here, is there anybody else you want to give any flowers to?
Leroy Bryant. I sent the tweet out on Saturday. Give me all the stock in Leroy. And the reason why I say that is because, again, we know that some of those younger redshirt freshmen are going to have to play this season. There's 3 in that class, right? Curly Reed, Leroy Bryant, and Caleb Presley. Caleb Presley is still working his way back. Again, not expected. Probably will be a contributor, right? But not nowhere near. We saw today. So I had a unique angle of practice, and I'm going to write about this, I believe, on Sunday or Monday about. I talked with Levon Coleman, and we're just watching this, and he's breaking it down, and we're basically going back and forth. But watch Leroy. You can see he's got all the coaching there. He's got all the instincts. Curly's there. He's got a little bit more to go, right? But they're both going to get playing time. But I would not be surprised if Leroy Bryant is playing himself into the 2 deeps by fall camp and into the start of the season, just because he's got that. There's so many intangibles and tangibles, right? He's got quickness. He understands backpedal. Levon was going through some drills. Hey, watch him do this backpedal and peel off. That's why he's been able to make that play and break up over the middle, because he's not having too much separation. He's right there, where some of these other guys are still a little stiff or whatever you want to call it. And so I think Leroy Bryant's got all the tools to really take that next step, especially with genuine coaching from John Richardson, which, again, Jabbar Muhammad was a great coach, but, you know, having John Richardson in the room is a massive, massive bonus.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers for tuning in. We really do appreciate your consistent support. We're going to keep coming at you with all of the breakdowns from every single practice, so please make sure you keep it right here on Locked On Huskies. And the best way to do that is by hitting that subscribe button, and you can do that wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel with new content every single day, so please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Click that little bell so you never miss when we post a new video, and please make sure to like the video. Leave us a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it all really does help us out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.